Woo!
E3 2021. It's officially a thing. So on the official blog, they wrote, and by they I mean the E3 people. It's game on for E3 as the Entertainment Software Association officially unveils plans for a reimagined all-virtual E3 2021 that will engage video game fans everywhere with early commitments from Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two Interactive, Warner Brothers Games, Coke? I don't know. I can never even know.
Coke Media.
Coke Media. And more. E3 2020 will take place on June 12th through June 15th. Developers will be showcasing their latest news and games directly to fans around the world. The ESA will be working with media partners globally to help amplify and make this content available for everyone for free. And then you got a quote from the president and CEO of the ESA here saying, for more than 2 decades, E3 has been the premier venue to showcase the best that the video game industry has to offer while uniting the world through games. We're evolving this year's E3 into a more inclusive event, but we'll still look to excite the fans with major reveals and the insider opportunities that make this event the indispensable center stage for video games. So one big asterisk or like other thing I'll tie into this before I get everyone's opinions on an online E3. Let's not forget we didn't actually have E3 last year. I know it may have felt like we did because there were so many events, but there was actually no E3 last year.
There was unofficial E3.
Everyone did their own thing. But the important thing to remember for this E3 is everyone that kind of did their own thing last year, they're coming back to do it again. But this time E3 is going to be in the mix. So Jeff Keighley said Summer Game Fest, it's back. It's happening again this year. They've already confirmed PC Gamer Show, it's a thing. Future Game Show from last year, it's still a thing. These are all happening around that June-July period, which means that we're still going to have that 2-month just clusterfuck of video game presentations, streams, shows, and events, which is both scary and bad. I honestly don't know how I feel about it at this point because I felt like I was watching a video game showcase every fucking night for like 2 months last year. So I don't know if I wanted to go through that again, but maybe it was a little bit too much. But I don't know. Ciaran, how do you feel about E3 being back online? I mean, exciting or not?
I don't know. I feel like E3, I think we had the same conversation last year. I think E3 needs to prove its viability and its kind of worthiness of being the spectacle that it previously was. I think with Jeff Keighley being Jeff Keighley and doing what he did last year with kind of bringing together and putting that summer of games, kind of showed that E3 is not really as required as it used to be. I think it's really good. It's the same as if we compare it to freaking in the wrestling world, WrestleMania, where WrestleMania happens and then a whole bunch of indie promotions have events kind of placed around it. So there's, hype over on wrestling all at the same time. I think that's what E3 used to do. I don't think E3 is required as much anymore. I think there's too many other occasions and too many other chances for developers to not only announce their games, but communicate with fans, because we have got into this point where developers have understood they need to communicate with their fans more often than once a year at E3. And that they need to have regular communication with people to say what's going on with their games and to kind of continue to communicate with their
Just
audience.
to chuck it out there, do you think it says something that you have Xbox and Nintendo in this press release saying they're signed on for E3, even though both of them now do their own things,
I think it's weird, but also at the same time, I think we shouldn't expect the same spectacle at this show as we might have previously expected from either organization. I don't think companies are as prepared to be all in on E3 as they used to be. E3 used to be, this thing where all the big boys, all the big developers would show up at the gambling table. They'd plonk all their chips in the middle of the desk, table, whatever you want to call it. I just called it a table and then forgot what I called it. But they dumped all their chips in the middle and they just went, cool, we're going to have a freaking chip measuring contest and we'll see what wins. Where I don't think developers need to do that anymore, or I don't think they want to do that anymore because they're trying to avoid Kingdom Hearts 3 situations where the game is talked about over and over and over again.
Hey, at least it came out and was playable, unlike Cyberpunk.
Well, that's true. That is very true. But yeah, I think it's overall, it's a case of E3 is not the spectacle that it once was, and I think that harms E3 more than it does anything else because I don't know how E3 makes itself as relevant as it used to.
Well, just before I forget this, because every other year prior to E3 going to shit last year, we would have been very excited in the lead up. Like we would have been like, fuck yeah, can't wait, let's get excited. And the thing with it's E3 is you don't wait to see if you're excited. You go into E3 fucking pumped because you're like, it's E3.
Already.
So how do the companies involved or E3 itself, what can they do? Because they can't obviously tell you what's going to be there. That spoils the surprise. But how can they try and get the public excited for E3 again without actually just spoiling what the announcements are?
They need to make E3 exciting again by making their press conferences at E3 exciting. If that makes sense.
But how do they hype you up for that before they happen?
They can't do anything in the build-up. They honestly, and you know what? Honestly, it should be the easiest not like fucking home run ever. When everybody's expectations are so fucking low, they should be like, they don't have PlayStation's problem of a couple years ago where they had show after show after show of fucking amazing reveals and trailers, and then all of a sudden they have a show that on its own, in its own little bubble, would be a good show.
4 games.
It would be a good show. But in the representative of their catalog of previous shows, it was garbage because we were so used to that high serotonin injecting fucking shows where you used to be so pumped to play video games afterwards. So this year, they have fucking no expectations. Everybody is expecting these shows to be not shit, but to be underwhelming. Nobody's overhyping themselves for once. Nobody is coming up with weird and wacky games that are going to be announced. Just come to this show and fucking smash it out the park. Fucking put it, well, even though, putting a bunch of release dates is a terrible idea right now in games, do something that is setting do your Fallout 4 moment. If Xbox comes out with Bethesda and does a Fallout 4 moment where they're like, fucking bang, this game's coming out in 6 months, and then follows through with it, that shit's insane.
Well, let me say one thing on that, is that I definitely feel like if Xbox does a proper E3 presentation, they're going to split it up, and they're going to have a segment where Bethesda aren't going to have their own conference, but they'll have a Bethesda segment of the Xbox show.
Yes, 100%.
Which will probably work better than Bethesda trying to do a full hour by themselves. So yeah. Ash, how are you feeling about E3?
Nah. I mean, their last E3 wasn't super exciting, so I'm sure it'll be interesting. We'll get some interesting reveals, but I guess I know the press conferences are obviously the big thing around E3, but I feel like it's the coverage of the games after those press conferences. Because believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, Dylan, E3 went for like 4 days, not just the 2 days the press conferences were running. Mm-hmm. I know some people like to be contrary to that. But whether we're going to get that kind of coverage afterwards from places like IGN or Press Start
ExplosionNetwork.com,
or they want to hit us up to give us a little bit more insight into these sort of games and stuff. If we're missing that element, I mean, it just becomes another series of videos.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing, and because that's the funniest thing talking about an E3 online. It's like E3's always been online for us, dude. It's like every year it's just online only. And, there's definitely a few people who like to act like E3 is just an online only event when there's literally like the rest of the week has an entire conference on that people are playing games, and IGN's hosting live shows every day. GameSpot's hosting live shows every day. They're talking to developers. People are playing games. Like, that's a big part of E3. It's not just the press conferences. So it's like, well, how do you bring that full E3 experience into an online only thing? And I guess that's kind of what would help get me more excited if they are like, look, we're going to have proper media people. We're going to have exclusive demos after the show. We're going to have the first 2 days is going to be your typical E3. It's press conferences from Xbox. It's press conference from Nintendo. It's a press conference from whoever. And then after that, you're going to have IGN and big outlets. They're going to have exclusive interviews with the games revealed, it's your typical E3 thing. Because that was always the cool thing about E3. you'd see a game revealed on stage and be like, yeah, fuck you, I can't wait to find out more about that. And then the developer would be on stage at IGN within the next couple of days talking about the game, giving you a few more details about it. Nintendo would do their Treehouse Live event. You know, they would reveal a game, they'd do Treehouse Live, they'd give you more details. They would show a CGI trailer or whatever for a game and then show you gameplay at the Treehouse Live. So you'd be like, fuck, I gotta watch the Treehouse Live. So I don't know. I just need more details. I'm open to being excited. One other quick question before we move on to the last news story is, I was going to say, outside of E3, how are we feeling about just that general, coming up to that American summer period where the E3, Summer Game Fest, all these things are going to be happening? Is anyone like sort of salivating some big game news, game events at the moment? Like, because we haven't really had too many big things, and currently the year's looking pretty it's kind of quiet so far, like unless we start locking in some release dates and stuff.
Things keep getting delayed. Like with Deathloop just getting delayed to September, it's just in a weird space, and I think we're going to have this COVID-19 hangover for next maybe. It's going to
affect the next several years, like 5, maybe in 5 to 10 years for all we know. Like games are long development periods.
Yeah. So, and I think that's just going to affect how games just are at the moment. And look, I'm excited for showcases and for events with these things, but at the same time, there's part of me that's just become maybe a little bit pessimistic at the fact that games are going to get delayed, and that's okay. That's completely fine. We want people to delay their games and actually use their time to fix their games and not just delay it and then just say fuck it and we'll just release a buggy game for the hell of it. It's just a case of it's hard to get excited for something when the goalposts are just continually being moved for it. Like, I was really pumped for Deathloop. Like, I was really excited for Deathloop coming out. And
I still am.
I still am. It's just been moved that little farther away.
Conspiracy.
So, yeah, it's just that like, kind of, you know, I think we were talking about how, like, we discussed with you guys how, I think, Dill, you said you're not going to pick up Mass Effect when it comes out because it's just that little bit too close to it.
Maybe I'll have to now.
Well, now.
Maybe you'll have to. Maybe you've got time to play it now. I think it's just a weird kind of space to be in right now for gaming, and I think that does put a little bit of a dampener on excitement levels. And maybe it's a good thing because gamers getting overhyped for shit is really toxic and really not fun to be in the community while they're doing that.
I agree, but I also just like getting hyped for stuff because I can control myself. Like, I love getting hyped over trailers at E3 and stuff like that. And I like getting excited for stuff, but I don't then, if it turns out the game's shit, be like, oh man, this is the way. You know, like I'm a fucking adult, so I can do it. Ash, are you ready? Like, how are you feeling? You excited for some announcements? Do you want some announcements, or are you like, nah, fuck it, I don't care?
Yeah, fuck it, I don't care.
Do you want some games to play or what? Like, what's the?
I know. Yeah. I know. I think my expectations are just low. You know.
Yeah, COVID has ruined everyone. You've all gone like lost some excitement in your lives. What is?
No, I think until we start getting rumors of what actually is going to be, you know, we can get ourselves hyped up. And you know, I feel like obviously COVID's like delayed nearly everything that wasn't almost entirely finished. You know, before the pandemic started. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they show.